Hello, everyone. This is Anthony with the Dragons of Victory. You haven't seen me in a while, and but I'm still here, and I just wanted to hop on and check in and let y'all know that I'm still kicking. I've been busy. I've been doing things I love, doing things I don't love as much, but I have to do. And as I've said before, the nature of this work with the Dragons of Victory of deconstructing, criticizing, taking apart the whole traditional Catholic world and movement, um, it can be and often is extremely painful and emotionally and psychologically, and so I have to sort of step back as needed. And I was just caught up in some really cool, rewarding projects that over the past few months that I wanted to be able to focus myself entirely on. But I still, to a lesser extent now, I still follow and check in on the whole Tradcath world and everything, and it's still the same toxic hurricane of dog shit. It's been this whole Dragons of Victory process has been I mean, not just starting this channel, but speaking out, contacting the FSSP about the priest who hurt me in my life. Is it's been it's hard to um communicate the stark difference in my life, the huge transformation in terms of so many things. It's one of those events in your life where there's definitely a before and an after. And this after for me has been, like I've said, painful, difficult, but I've at the same time it's been more rewarding and more um satisfying and more I don't know what other words to use, but more of those things than I thought possible, and more affirming than I ever thought possible. Not just affirming for me, for my own sake, but affirming it in the sense of seeing all these other people online and a little bit in person s- confirm everything I've been saying and saying, no, this is a toxic culture. These practices are crazy. This is a pulverize. This does pulverize your mental health and drive you crazy. And so I just want to again reemphasize and say again how grateful and thankful I am for all of you out there, for all the positive feedback and messages I've received. For me, in terms of the personal healing, I feel like I've basically gotten there. Now, I don't want to speak too soon in a sense, but I feel so different than I did a few years ago when I started all this. And it's been amazing. But the work on the Dragons of Victory, as small as it is, as infrequent as it is, especially compared to the great work that Kevin and Cade and Callian and all those other people do, it is not so much for me anymore because at this point, I think the only it, constantly reminding myself of this stuff, constantly listening to these people, constantly diving into all this stuff. In a way, I don't know how much more it can hurt me because again, I grew up marinated in that culture. Again, with a family that was kind of one foot in, one foot out, but I was both feet in. I took it. I'm a much more intense person than my parents are, than most people in my family are, and so when I truly believe something and when I want to do the right thing, I put my entire being into it. and I put so much more of my entire being than most, I think a lot of other people in my family did into the whole trad cath world, and that's why it had so much more negative effect on me, I think, than than it does for other people. Although I'm still convinced it's a objectively negative thing, and the negative effects it can have on people will vary depending on how old you are, right? But that's one factor. But at this point, for me, I'm only continuing in whatever way I will, small or big, the work of the Dragons of Victory. It's not over yet. I'm only continuing it for the sake of others out there who might stumble across my content or others' content. People who are mostly younger people who are in the Tradcath world and culture, to, if not pull them out of it and make them leave it, at least be educated, and understand what environment they're truly in, what this culture wants, what it is versus what it purports to be, and above all, to understand that the chaos and the discord and the backstabbing that exists in the mostly in the Tradcath influencer world, which does, despite the fact that it's online, and online is really not the real world, the influencer world of trad Catholicism is influenced by traditional Catholicism as a whole. And I've come to learn that as awful and toxic as the the trad Cath world is, in the brick and mortar buildings, physically, when you're physically part of it, it's awful. But it's to try and make sense of, or work in the world of these tradcath influencers where where it's just a maelstrom, a hurricane of hatred and vitriol, and it's just toxicity on steroids. It's the world they live in, and it just takes 5 minutes to glance through their content if you're on the outside to see that. And that's something while I'm here checking in, something I wanted to reiterate, and something I have to kind of remind myself too, sometimes, is that to those out there, um, challenging, fighting against the trad Cath world, the whole traditional Catholic culture, it's 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 awful, it's crazy, and it's pathetic what we're fighting against. It's pathetic in the sense of their grandiose vision for society, their imposing of the social reign of Christ the King. You, the They live in such a fantasy world that they're never going to accomplish that, because the the insanity-inducing conflict that's constantly there in the world, in the traditional Catholic world, the conflict, div- battle, combat is their fuel. And those things are necessary. You have to act in self-defense. You have to fight back if you're being attacked. But they live in a world where they're constantly attacked by everyone all the time. That's Cult 101. We're the perfect society. We're the perfect group of people, and everyone else is out to get us. Everyone else hates us. Most people don't understand most people don't even, I have to really explain what traditional Catholicism even is, and as distinct from mainstream Catholicism. You're not going to take over the world if most people don't even know who you are, or what you are. Tradcath world, you need to start understanding that. To the outside, to me now, people who've left that culture looking at it, from the outside, supposed to looking at it from the inside, you are, yeah, you're pathetic. You're not going to accomplish anything. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and you can't build up anything. You can't sustain anything in the Tradcath world. Nothing in that world is sustainable because they're constantly trying to, build up a society, create their own perfect world. And because what they believe is insane, and because the way they act is insane, and because you can't build up anything stable um, with a mind that is perpetually in fight mode and combat, that's destruction. They're constantly in destruction mode because they're constantly in fight mode. But they want to build up, cultures and build up their own little, enclave and again essentially take over the world. And they they just can't understand how powerless they truly are and how insignificant they truly are in the grand scheme of the world and there's for the naysayers in the comments for the which I'm sure I'll get for this one for the naysayers, that's kind of putting it mildly, for the freaks in the comment who say all kinds of crazy attacks against me. you I know too much to rejoin you, or who say like come back. I simply know and understand too much about how the world really works now to ever go back to a traditional Catholic church ever again, because nothing works in that world. Nothing actually works, and things just not that in the real world everything works perfectly, of course not, but things work so much better and make so much more sense and in the real world than they do in the Trathcath world. And it's just one of those things that you can't unsee. And for the times, the moments since I've left, when I miss that sense of certainty, that sense of community, where I'm sad at times at having moved on from all of that, because there are things I miss about it. It is just something I constantly come back to and remind myself of is that despite, and I'm going to give a personal account here, and I get a lot of comments from Tradcath defenders who say, well, I don't feel that same way. I don't experience what you're describing. And it's like, fine, great. 99% likely you didn't actually grow up in it. You joined it as an adult. So that's why you're not, you it might be legitimate what you're saying. I'm here, but that's your own personal statement. It's your what's the term I'm looking for? It's anecdotal, I guess. That's your anecdotal opinion. Here's mine. Not once at any point have I ever, and I'm sure there's many of you feel the same way. Not once has it ever occurred to me, or I've ever had the thought that I need to rejoin trad Catholicism because it's true, because it's objectively true factually. Uh, I that's never even come close to entering my mind. It's always the thought when it's there is always something you should join, you should rejoin again because you'll feel um sounds weird to say you'll feel better, but again, I said there's things I miss. The voice in my head will sometimes say go back, uh but it's always for an emotional reason. Always. It is never um I'm never drawn back by anything remotely factual, remotely remotely based on cold hard truth ever. And that's a very important point I need to emphasize here and drive home is that in Tradcath world, despite the veneer they constantly put up of this is just the truth, we have no choice but to accept all of this craziness. We live in this world because we have to, because it's objective reality. But it simply isn't. And whenever you challenge, whenever you're talking to them and you challenge what they believe based on, the facts, then the defense mode turns on, and it's all about, well, why are you attacking my beliefs? Why are you coming at? What right do you have to criticize my beliefs? And the response is, you want to impose your beliefs on the planet, on society, and you can't defend them without getting emotional, without getting uh, defensive. You can't, you can't in any way whatsoever defend your view of society based on logic, based on non-emotion, based on cold hard facts. It's impossible. You're not gonna be able to convince anyone rational that the sun rotates around the earth, that we lived with dinosaurs, that evolution didn't happen, any of this stuff. And for those who comment and saying, well, trads don't believe that, the rational trads don't, that the people who are, joined as adults and kind of live one foot in, one foot out, and are drawn to certain aesthetics and certain that's what draws them into trad Catholicism. Might be true for them, but that is what they believe. Those, when you dive into that world and you want to take it seriously and you want to believe what they say, you will 100% encounter those beliefs, because those are all things that the church used to teach officially and no longer do, because it those beliefs could no longer be rationally justified in any way, shape, or form. So the mainstream church wisely moved on. But the fundamentalists, the people who constantly live in that world of constantly trying to prove that they're the best little boys, little girls, prove a constant state of violence against themselves because they think that that's what God wants. When you're constantly in a state of violence against yourself, you're going to destroy yourself ultimately, and you can't give what you don't have. That's a line that trad Catholics like to use to deny evolution. It's like, well, you can't give what you don't have, completely misunderstanding what evolution is. When you're constantly um, destroying yourself, destroying your own sense of self-worth, which you constantly do in the Tradcath world, you can't possibly build up anything. You can't possibly take over society. So I guess to sum this all up, to those of the uh, outside of the Tradcath world criticizing it and inside and having doubts and wanting to leave it, don't be afraid. There's, there's personal issues involved in this. There's obviously going to be it's obvious that kind of change in your life is obviously going to cause all kinds of different issues that are personal to you that I can't, you know, I'm not in any position to advise you on, but just simply don't be afraid of the system, of the Tradcath system. It's because, I used to be, still do to a small extent. As a kid, I had a really, really intense phobia of snakes. Like if I saw a snake in person, I would literally freak out and hyperventilate. I remember as a kid, there was like this snake show I was watching, and this guy pulled out a snake. I literally crawled under my chair. But snakes, I came to find out as I got older, are more afraid of you than you are of them. They're scary because they're scared. And the Tradcath world is scary because they're all scared all the time. fear is their oxygen, and you can't live like that. So they're not going to take over the world. They're not going to accomplish what they want to, but they can still do a lot of damage to people's psyche and peace and well-being in the meantime. They can still hurt a lot of people. They hurt me very much, but I've come so far and you can too. And that's what this is about, to try and help people out there. So thank you for listening. I'm still here. I'll try to get some more stuff going at some point soon. Got some ideas, got some plans, and I hope you fly away to victory. Take care.